Morning. Sitting here thinking about what to do, and I thought I'd go back to Mitcham Common, the Seven Islands, but work from memory. It's a pot boiler really, but keep doing different versions of them. It all helps beginners and intermediate painters to free up and use their imagination. The Seven Islands, it's a nice little spot at Mitcham Common, on Mitcham Common, which has suffered over the years from landfill and re-landscaping, going from a very beautiful flat area to quite a big hill where the islands are. But it's a breath of the country in suburbia, which is always to be appreciated. So what we've got are distant trees, not that distant, a bank. I'll put an island there and a bank here, just a normal scene. So for those that are watching for the first time, I'm using a Ron Ranson 2-inch hake cut down. This is about that long to start with, but working as we are close to the board, you don't need anything that will hit you in the face when you're swinging it around a bit. It's slightly less than 2 inches, about 48 millimetres wide, longish bristles, very good brush, made from I think from fine pig hair, made in China, I'm sure. The bristles are soft, and it lasts quite a long time, but it does have a tendency to hold a secret amount of water, which can be infuriating when you're not used to it. So we always have a cloth handy to take off excess moisture. The palette I use is lemon yellow, raw sienna, alizarin crimson, light red, ultramarine, burnt umber, Payne's grey and burnt sienna. And I've given them a spray suggested by Maria. Always work with I'll start with a cup of tea. It usually goes cold when I get carried away with the painting, especially when it's going wrong, and it does go wrong quite often. So the paints are Scotsman watercolours. You can use what you like. You can use artist quality if you can afford them, but these are relatively inexpensive. They come in 21ml tubes and they're called Cottman, made by Winsor & Newton. I buy them online from whoever's doing them the cheapest really, and they do vary by quite a bit. So I'm getting a bit low with some colours. I've got half a dozen on order to keep my stock going. I use various riggers, whatever comes to hand really. I've got this fine rigger, and I've got the next size up, another rigger, and I've got a big rigger, which is the number 4, which is probably the most useful. But you start and you practice and practice. If a brush doesn't work for you to begin with, it's not because of the brush, it's because you're not used to it. Same with this brush. Don't quit because you can't do it, just persevere till you can, and then you'll be surprised just how good you were all along. I've got the old type of hake here. The bristles are shorter, and the brush it's got these wedges in the side which sometimes get in the way of the painting and the dry brushing, which you don't have with this one. But these were the early ones. I don't use it. I just got it. I bought that one probably 25 years ago. I've not used it. This is another hake in the same situation, same condition as that one. It's older, but the bristles were quite misbehaving. They're bound into this ferrule with in clumps, and sometimes the clumps separate. But with practice, you can bring the hairs back together again with a bit of water on your brush. So, first thing to do is to wet the paper all over, not sopping wet, because it will run down all over the place, and your paint when you put it on will be too weak, too thin. So just give it a little bit of a help to soak in, which it will do. Decide on your sort of sky. I don't like doing plain blue skies, something boring. I like to try to make a, as you see what happens with the brush, all these different clumps. I like to have a dramatic sky if I can, with quite a bit of colour. So we'll start there. While this is soaking in, I'll get some raw sienna and just put a bit of a wash over various parts of the paper. This is the warmth behind the clouds and the big blue, and paint the water the same colour. You could do all sorts of effects with this. I'm going to put a bit of burnt sienna in there as well on the horizon. Just in there like that. Okay, so a nice bit of warmth and some variety already. The water that you initially used to wet the paper sinks in and makes the painting expand, the paper expand when we reclip it. You don't need to shrink your paper first. Right, let's put in a bit of blue, ultramarine, a bit of Payne's grey, a bit of red. That was a lot of red. So here we are, we can get a bit of, just get this over the water, the reflection. And as you come down, if you put clouds in lower down, make them small so that you get this bit of perspective as well. Now that will do. I'm going to let that go. The paper, sorry, coughing away. The paper, when it dries, gives a nice surface for dragging a dryish brush over. It catches the high spots, but you can't do it when it's wet. It will just all bleed into the background colour. So that's quite a good sky. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to give it a bit of a dry now. So take your headphones off. That's enough, it's not bone dry. I want to put my background trees in, and I don't want the trees to bleed into below the horizon. I'll put the reflections in later. And I'll put in some greens over the top of that. So the idea of using blue in the background is that, being a cool colour, it looks distant, so that we create an illusion of depth. Now I'm just painting traditional landscape. It's all I do, all I ever wanted to do. I'll leave the art to those with more vision. And I remember the great Edward Weston, one of his students on a trip to the countryside in Surrey somewhere, saying to him, well, this is what he said, or as reported, that somebody remarked when he was doing his landscape, he said, well, it's all been done before. And Ted turned to him and said, not by me, it hasn't. So there you are. But it's your paint, you can do whatever you like with it. There's no limit to your abstract expressionism and throwing colour. I just like this. Alright, the horizon's fairly on there. Now I'll put a bit of raw sienna underneath that now. That will be a bit of a That would be the bank on the other side. Okay. Now we've got some nice colour in that. I'll put some burnt sienna here and there. Just little bits of warm. Bit of blue in with the burnt sienna. Gives a sort of a greeny, bit of yellow mixed in with that. I'm not going to put too much in because I'm going to put a tree up there, as I am on the other side. Now, if you want your colours to actually stick and not bleed into the surrounding wetness, you have to mix up very thick colour. That's why it's a good idea to wet your colours first. So these are the nearer trees, but they wouldn't be covered in foliage. They could be ivy, and you do get a lot of green showing in the winter. Evergreens and all sorts. But you've got the bare trees as well. I'll see if I can remember to leave a bit of this unpainted so that I can put a figure on the distant bank. It takes a little bit of time doing all this, but there we are. I'm trying to put in lots of nice colours in the background. A bit of red even, why not? Okay, we'll let that go for a minute. Now, with the finger, just lift out little bits of these trunks in the distance. Right, and a bit of hard underneath this here. Although I'm just going over my flicks. Okay, that's it. Clean my brush, reclip the paper. So I know a lot of you labour over skies, but look, you saw how quickly I did that. It's always going to be a bit hit and miss when you're painting wet in wet, and painting at an angle that is almost 85 degrees. I'm going uphill there a little bit, so I might just put some. I'll just straighten that up a little bit. The reflections are quite easy to do. I would do those at the end, just by re-wetting the paper. So we just put in some. That's where an island's going to go there anyway. Okay. Right. I'm going to put some larger trees, some bare trees. A bit of blue and a bit of, but dry. Right. A bit of burnt sienna, bit of blue. So I can just put in some bare trees coming down to the island. Probably a little bit darker than that, I guess. I'll put a bit of Payne's grey in there. They're just touching the edge on the dryish paint. So I might put the rigger to work on those, and put a bit of license here, a bit of ivy. And that will make sense when I put the trunks in. Okay, and I'll put a bigger one up here, but I've got to put my tree on the bank there. So let's just put this bank across this island in here. Oh dear. thicker paint in this bank, and I can put reflections under there now. I had to come that far down to cover up my blot. I'll do some work on there. Okay, that'll do for now, and we can just flick out some bits and pieces there. I don't really use a lot of burnt umber. It's a lovely colour for beaches and stuff, for sand, but I don't know why, it's nothing personal. But I prefer the burnt sienna mixed with blue. But we all have our favourite mixes, but one thing I can tell you, that if you're in a difficulty in the painting, throwing different colours at it doesn't make any difference, it makes it worse. So I choose most 8 colours, so the old Ron Ranson palette for English landscape or UK landscape, and I've just added the burnt sienna to it, and the colours are all those that I described earlier, except the burnt sienna. And he used his paint straight from the trees, from the tubes. Right, now I'm going to put a bit of a beach in here. I'm trying to make this as easy as possible. I'm just going to use all my usual colours. I've got lots of colour in there. But the ultramarine and burnt sienna give a lovely sorry the silence. Lots of colour in this. We can put some reflections in here. I'll leave some of this unpainted. I can put some pebbles and stuff in this with a card, which I'll show you. Then let's go right to the bottom because it's going to be covered up, isn't it? Nice warm reds and in the foreground to give an impression of recession. So as you come closer to your feet, so to speak, you use the reds, the warm colours, to contrast with the blues. It's basic, really. And I can develop that with the rigger. So now I want to put in some trees up there. So we'll have some trees coming up here. Just use the chisel edge of the bristles. Just move that down there a little bit. So keep all this very colourful. Bit of sienna in there. Now with my card, just want to, I need a bit of dark, a bit darker around the foreground here. And then just a few little pebbles. just adding a bit of texture to this. Don't overdo it, just flick a few grasses and then carry on with our tree. I do doing this like this with the hay because it's a bit hit and miss, and you can use the rigger afterwards, but it gives an impressionist feel to it. Spontaneous is the word I'm looking for. Lots of sort of stunted hawthorns and bits and pieces. I'll just do a couple here. Let's come up here. I'm a great believer of using the largest brush possible that you can get away with. Stops you fiddling and fussing around. And the hay has got so many facets to it, you can I'll have to do some with the rigger, of course. And you need to anchor I need to go a little bit heavier on the ends of these trees here, just a bit more. Just dragging with the side of the brush, just gently, just catching the high spots. Okay, right, now I need to do some warmer. I love winter. I love seeing the trees in this condition. Another way of showing a few leaves on the trees is to break your hake up by dabbing it on a dry cloth and then dipping all the different points into your mix. And now, a little dodge, a bit of blue, a bit of red, a bit of alizarin. Clean brush though. A bit of blue, a bit of alizarin. Fairly dry brush. And just put some in behind. It's a bit darker than that. The reason is it gives an impression that there's some branches going off in the back. So it gives a 3D effect, hopefully, to the twigs. Just my shorthand way. I'm going to tell you that this took me a long time to learn to do, a lot of practice. And I learnt it mostly from Roland Hilder, the late great Roland Hilder. It's of course it's shorthand for painting a lot of leaves or dead bits on the ends of the winter trees. But I want that to stay separate from that island there, although I probably should come up a little bit higher with these. So we will. It's all about controlling the amount of water in the brush. Just bring those up a bit more. That'll do. I can't. Don't want to do any more than that. We haven't done the reflections yet, so in case you think I've sort of forgotten, I haven't. Right, just do a bit of rigger work. And the way one way of using the rigger is to mix up some dark paint. You need a lot of water for this because the riggers don't hold very much water, but a nice warmy colour, and just texture. There's going to be some shadow on here anyway. Oh. Lift up the side of the brush and then just hit and miss. And then what you put above, you can put below. That will give an impression that there's something going on. Got a bit of yellow to that. It's all good fun, and if you're not enjoying it, you shouldn't be doing it. It doesn't always go right, of course. It's largely hit and miss with wet and wet watercolour, and controlled sort of happy accidents. Creating an impression all the time, rather than putting everything in. Plenty of this. You see, the line is different with the rigger. It's more solid, continuous, whereas the hake, the way I was using it, is hit and miss. It's got that lovely touch to it. Lots of branches in this to justify all those twigs. You can do the same there. You can harden up a little bit, put some more solid ones in with clumps of leaves at the end. As I say, there's no limit to what you can do, how you can paint. And you don't have to paint the way I do. You do your own thing. But by copying me and Stephen Cronin, well, I don't know, you will develop your own way, your own language, your own style. We don't mind you copying. We encourage it because that's how we learn. Well, there we are. Right, I'm going to give that a good dry. So take your headphones off. Now, although I'm not copying a photograph of the Seven Islands, it's a small lake with 7 islands on it, funny enough, or a very large pond, It's very lovely because it's surrounded by suburbia, and I just do an idealised version of it from memory. This could be a lake anywhere. But we're making paintings, we're not making photographs. We're expressing ourselves and we're painting in things that we'd like to see in our ideal landscape. But for me, above all, I like to see peace. I like to paint peace, and that's my thing. Now, lecture over. Let's wet the brush, but make sure it's really nice and clean, and just generally re-wet the water, but don't scrub because it will remove the paint underneath. But while it's in the state dry, it'll be quite okay. So now we put in some of these colours that are on the horizon above. So we've got lots of, I'm going to get my bristles together, but you still need dry brush. Remember you've got wet paint, wet water on there, wet water, and it will start to spread into the water, the paint. So let's just, don't overdo it though. Just repeat what's above in the water below. Similar colours, bit of green in there. See, now these lovely greens, I've not used Payne's Grey. I'm waiting for my delivery of paint, and I'm going to have a go at black instead of the Payne's Grey. See how we get on with it. I'll go more blue in there now. We could just do a few flicks down here. And now on this bit here, across here, we've got this cloud shadow, so I used a bit of Payne's Grey in that. So I'll just, now the paper is a bit crinkly there, so and now we've got now we'll put in a bit of right. Let's get some more in there. Okay. All I need to do now is to pick up my brushes off the floor. And that is just a little bit damp. I'm just going to give that a dry. Hold on to your head. Just a little bit. And just right, that's about all I can do there. I'll sign it. If I've missed anything, shout loud. Right, just I'll put some birds in. I was going to put some people in, wasn't I? So I will. A bit of red and blue. That's that. Little figure over here. doggy. And I'll just put a little bit of a reflection. Okay, that'll do, that'll do. Right, put it in a mount and we will see what we've done. The blue mount, of course, because blue goes well with the amount of blue that I've got in the picture. So let's just move that there. Okay, well there's a quite attractive picture. Not a great one. You can use the mount to straighten up the horizon. All's fair in love and war. So there we are. That's about it. Beginning, middle and end. I hope you enjoyed that. Let's come in with the camera. Alright, right, zoom. Right, I'll just look at the horizon. You see you've got the distant blue. So I've got all those plains, I've got all those trees, which are not huge trees, with no detail in this bit here. I could do a lot of this, but that's enough. There's plenty of colour in there. Nice recession. Well, flatter myself, but got my figure and the little dog. A bit of an island there, with just these trees on. It's more a bank than, but that's how it's turned out anyway. Well, split hairs over it. So there's my foreground. Quite a lot going on there, but very simply done, as you saw. There's no portraits painted here, just an impression, an overall look of a lake with some banks and islands and whatever you want it to be. It's my little bit of fantasy that I shared with you. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye bye.